Now, Holocaust survivors have urged the world not to repeat the mistakes of history as they mark the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Survivors and Western leaders gathered at the site of the former Nazi death camp in Poland to honour those who died there and the millions of others killed by Nazi Germany. The event was expected to be the last major commemoration with survivors present because of their age. Auschwitz was the largest of the extermination camps and has become a symbol of the Nazi genocide of 6 million Jews.
Auschwitz is a small town in southern Poland. In 1939, Poland was invaded by Nazi Germany, and Auschwitz, renamed Auschwitz, was incorporated into the German Reich. In 1942, at the Wannsee Conference in Berlin, Germany's Nazi regime agreed on how to implement its plan to systematically murder the entire Jewish population of Europe. Auschwitz, located at a major junction of key railway lines and far from German public view, was to become the main location for the darkest chapter in German history. The entire complex comprised 3 main camps and extended over several villages. In Auschwitz I, medical experiments were conducted on prisoners, and people killed en masse in gas chambers. The extermination camp was built in Auschwitz-Birkenau, also known as Auschwitz II. Trains with tens of thousands of people arrived here day and night. The deportees, mostly Jewish families, were divided up immediately. SS doctors divided who was fit to work and who wasn't. Families were torn apart. The elderly, sick and children usually went straight to the gas chambers. These were disguised as showers. The people had to undress first and were crammed into large rooms. Cyclone B poison was introduced through a hatch. Those inside suffered an agonisingly slow suffocation, taking up to 30 minutes. Afterwards, prisoners had to take the bodies to the crematorium and burn them there. In the years 1943 to 1944, an average of 6,000 Jews were gassed every day. The victims in Auschwitz also included Roma and Sinti, prisoners of war, people with disabilities, and gay people. When the Soviet Red Army reached Auschwitz in January 1945, only around 7,000 had survived the Nazi death machine. The SS had destroyed the gas chambers and crematoria a few weeks earlier and sent many prisoners on forced marches known as death marches. Most of the perpetrators disappeared and never faced trial. Auschwitz was the largest camp, but only one of some 1,000 concentration camps and 6 extermination camps operated by the Nazis.
Now, Helene Joffe grew up in a Jewish family in France, and she went into hiding in 1943 when she was just 8 years old. She vividly remembers the impact the Holocaust had on her family. After the war, she moved to South Africa and started a new life there as a teacher. DW's Diane Hawker met the now 90-year-old Holocaust survivor.
But I had no idea that I would not see my father again. And only lately I actually had a terrible pain in my heart when my father never said goodbye to me.
Helene Joffe recalls the day Nazi soldiers took her father away because he was Jewish. It was the day her childhood ended, the day her family was torn apart by the Holocaust.
The area, a few days later, was completely razed to the ground. And we lost everything. That's the history of my family.
She has just a few treasured keepsakes from before the war, like this photo of her with her father. Joffe was just 8 and her brother only 4 when they had to leave their home in Marseille. They stayed with a family in the French Alps, pretending to be Catholic. Her older siblings joined the resistance movement, fighting German occupying soldiers. Her mother hid in another town under a fake name until the end of the war. When it was over, her mother and siblings reunited and tried to find her father.
We used to go to the station every day. My mother took me every day to see the people that survived the camps, if my father would come back. For me, it was the most horrific experience.
He didn't come back. Joffe later learned that her father was killed in the Sobibor extermination camp in Nazi-occupied Poland. After completing university in France, she left Europe and moved to South Africa to start a new life as a teacher. She got married here, had a family, and taught French at different schools in Cape Town. Joffe was initially reluctant to speak about her childhood, but in the 1990s, after the movie Schindler's List was released, about a German who hid Jews during the Holocaust, she decided to open up.
I didn't want to speak to my children, nor my husband. They knew, but we didn't speak. As you can see, I'm still breaking. But I suddenly realized I had to do it. And I always believed that that's why I survived, to speak. Because after me, it's a history book.
She now works alongside the Holocaust Museum in Cape Town, conducting several talks each year. It's especially important for her to talk to young people about this history, she says, so that it never happens again.
My idea is, first of all, to explain to children that everybody is the same and you do not have hatred for your friend next to you.
Joffe says she knows her time on this earth is limited and she wants to use her remaining years to speak openly about the dangers of war and extremist politics.
Stephan Lehnstaedt is a history professor focused on Holocaust and Jewish studies at the Truro University campus here in Berlin. Welcome to DW. Thank you so much for your time. You've devoted so much of your career to the study of the Holocaust. Today is an important day. Can you tell us what this commemoration of 80 years since the liberation of Auschwitz, the death camp, what it means for you?
Well, it means, first of all, that we must not forget. And it also means that, it's 80 years now, so almost all of the survivors are dead by now. I mean, we have some 50 or so left. So it's up to us to bear the flame and to commemorate, although they are dead.
We are, of course, further and further removed, aren't we, chronologically from the Holocaust. So how can young people, as well as, for example, migrants who, may have just moved to Germany, how can they grasp its enormity and its global importance? How can that be conveyed to them?
I think Auschwitz is an icon of the Holocaust. Everyone knows Auschwitz or has heard of it. But the thing is, what does that actually mean to us? And I think that's what we really, as historians, but also in all the memorial sites in Germany, teachers in school, what they have to transport to the people, that it's important to remember, and that this history of racism, of anti-Semitism, and of the absolute will to exterminate people, that this is existed and therefore it can happen again, and we have to prevent that.
Absolutely. The statistics show, however, that a worrying number of people aren't aware of what happened. They don't know about the history, and of course sometimes people deny that it ever even happened. I mean, what is it like for you to hear people denying the Holocaust, or at least distorting its relevance?
Unfortunately, is something that I face often in my academic career. I mean, not among fellow historians, but you know, when you do the outreach, then that's what you actually hear. And it's something that really worries me, but it's also something that I'm actually fighting against, and that's why I am researching the Holocaust. I mean, that is actually, it's not a pleasant topic to research, but it has a meaning, and it has a meaning that's also a personal issue for me.
Mm-hmm. So tell us why, because if you didn't do the job that you do, if you didn't fight against a lack of knowledge and a lack of awareness, what would the consequences be?
Well, I think the consequences would be that we forget, and Auschwitz tells us the responsibility that we Germans have. So it's not just about the victims. I mean, the victims are of crucial importance, of course, but we in Germany, we bear the responsibility. It was our ancestors, our grandparents, our great-grandparents who committed the murder, who started the war. And it's our obligation to remember, and also, to take financial responsibility. There's the camps, and so we have to preserve that memory also, and the material remnants as well.
Mm-hmm. You're saying you're a professor of history, so you're doing the job as part of your career. What about other people, young people? I mean, how can the growing anti-Semitism that we're seeing, how can that be effectively fought by everybody, especially in this era of social media? I mean, we all know how easily false information is spread these days.
Well, I mean, in some sense, this is the million-dollar question. But my answer as a historian, obviously, is that knowledge is key to remembering. So we have to spread that knowledge. And it's not just about having Auschwitz as an icon, but we also have to know what it actually means. And it's the number of the victims, it's the perpetrators who committed the crime. We have to know that it's about Jews, but it's not just about Jews. We've heard that here before. I mean, there were Polish victims, there were Gypsy victims, and so on. So it's not just a German Jewish thing, but basically it's a universal thing, if you like. Although, of course, the Jewish German respect is crucial.
Holocaust and Jewish Studies Professor Stephan Lehnstaedt, thank you so much for your time. And we can hear now from an expert on European Jewish history and culture. Professor Katrin Stephan is from the University of Sussex in the UK and is joining me this evening from here in Berlin. Welcome to DW. Thank you so much for your time. We just heard in that story Helene Joffe saying that she realised later in life that she needed to speak out about her experiences. Can you explain to us how valuable people like her and the stories that they have to tell, how valuable they are?
Yes, I can hear you.
Experience these people really had during the Holocaust. I mean, we have a lot of books on the Holocaust, how it happened, how it developed, how it could happen, but how the people experienced it, how it really was for them. It is invaluable to have this personal experience, and we also need this personal experience to be able to have something to say against those who claim that the Holocaust had never happened, or that there are distorting Holocaust narratives nowadays. We need those voices desperately to also correct all those narratives that are not that are false, that are falsified, that are getting falsified, and we have more of them nowadays. And what I just want to say, this is also a development. During the 1950s, 1960s, in Germany, it was very difficult for survivors to get a voice, because people, also historians, were saying, okay, they are not credible because they are too subjective, they are not objective enough. So this was the huge development, to listen to the survivors, to take them serious and to acknowledge them.
We heard
it's going to be.
We heard Helene Joffe say, didn't we, in that report that, after me, it is a history book. So, as you're saying, it's so valuable to hear from them, but they're getting older. And when all Holocaust survivors are gone, people will have to read books. So will simply reading about the Holocaust be enough for people to truly understand what happened, wherever they come from?
It's going to be it's going to be a great challenge, actually, to Holocaust education, that the witnesses are going to be not amongst us anymore. And I really think we have to the institutions, memorial sites, the historical places, the places where the Holocaust took place as well, they have to be in the position that they can develop new formats for Holocaust remembrance. So they have to get the money simply to be able to look at different digital formats. How can we work with videos of Holocaust survivors? How can we work with other digital formats? How can we work also? We have to look also into the accounts of second-hand or second or third generations. So what they heard from their grandparents, from their parents, from first-hand experience. So this is a challenge for Holocaust education, and we have to, we cannot pretend that this is not a challenge, and we have to face this challenge and create the framework in which we secure that there will be also. I mean, we can't replace the witnesses, obviously, but we have to develop new formats for this.
You mentioned earlier that you're seeing a blurring of lines between fact and fiction, even the suggestion that this may never have happened. Tell us what you think people should do to fight back against Holocaust denial or distortion, especially in a time of such, widespread social media use, easily spread falsehoods.
Yeah, it's really difficult, and this is another challenge. I mean, we all know what happens in Germany right now. The far-right parties, Alternative for Deutschland, they just claim that Hitler was a communist, or Elon Musk is talking to them and talking to their party members and says, forget about the guilt of the Germans, we have to make Germany great again, and we have to fight this, we have to confront this, we have to go to social media and not let this distortion become some kind of mainstream conviction in Germany and for young people in Germany. We also know that from the survey the Jewish Claims Conference published a couple of days ago that knowledge about the Holocaust amongst younger people in Germany is diminishing, although we have lots of efforts in all kinds of schools and institutions of education and so forth and so on, but people want, they also, there is Holocaust knowledge is diminishing, but the young people also say, and this is giving us also hope, they want to learn about the Holocaust, but we have to find the formats that really reach young people, right? To be able to fight this. And it's a task of all of us to fight indifference, to fight intolerance in our everyday lives, and not look away, because this was how it all started also in the 1920s and 1930s. People were silencing it, people were looking away, they were tolerating anti-Semitism. And this, each and one of us is like, it's our task.
I'm aware that our time is limited, but I do just want to ask you one more question, because I know that your Institute of Jewish Studies in Sussex says it wants to function as an agent of change. So on this day, 80 years after the liberation of the Auschwitz death camp, how can one act as an agent of change?
Well, actually, in Sussex, we do have a huge Holocaust digital memory lab. So we are trying to research how digital Holocaust education can look in the future and how we can change the world, to be a better place, to fight anti-Semitism also in social media and in the net. And I think this is a very important task. And this is one of the tasks we do try to fulfill in Sussex. There are different ones also to include maybe in our German memory. I mean, this is a UK institution, but to include in European memory also more of the Eastern European victims, because they sometimes a bit fall under the table, so to speak. I mean, and yeah, so there are still lots of paths we have to take to change, to be able to change Holocaust education and memory and to adopt it to our modern times.
Professor Katrin Steffen of the University of Sussex in the UK, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much for having me.